Hi everybody and welcome to Hope Community Church Longside's series on the book of Isaiah. We're on the fourth one right now and we're calling this series The Lord Saves. We've seen in previous episodes that Isaiah had a vision. He looked up, he saw God, he looked down and he saw people. And in between looking up and looking down, he saw Jesus. He saw a figure who would save, who would mediate between the holy God and the unholy people. And we saw in the second episode that Theo did that he saw a beautiful vision that will come, that will be created by this figure. We saw on Tuesday with Matthew that Isaiah saw the Lord. Well, here we see this mediator, this one who stands between people and God, has a name. And that's what we're going to be looking into this time. So let's read and pray. Father, thank you that you sent this mediator. You sent Jesus to bring us to you. You sent Jesus to be the reality that our lives are built around. Amen. So we're going to read from Isaiah chapter 8, verse 5. The Lord continued, I am like the gently flowing stream of Siloam. But the people of Judah have turned their backs on me. They are filled with joy because of the fall of Rezin and the son of Remaliah. So I'm about to bring against these people the king of Assyria and his whole army. The Assyrians will be like the mighty river Euphrates when it is flooding. They will run over everything in their path. They will sweep on into Judah like a flood. They will pass through Judah and reach all the way to Jerusalem. Immanuel, they will attack your land like an eagle. Their wings will spread out and cover it. Sound the battle cry, you nations, but you will be torn apart. Listen, all you lands far away. Prepare for battle, but you will be torn apart. Prepare for battle, but you will be torn apart. Make your battle plans, but you won't succeed. Give your orders, but they won't be carried out. That's because the Lord is with us. The Lord speaks to me while his powerful hand is on me. He's warning me not to live the way these people live. He says, people of Judah, do not agree with those who say Isaiah is guilty of treason. Do not fear what they fear. Do not be afraid. The Lord rules over all. So you must think about him as holy. You must have respect for him. You must fear him. Then the Lord will be a holy place of safety for you. But that's not true for many people in Israel and Judah. He will be a stone that causes them to trip. He will be a rock that makes them fall. And for the people of Jerusalem, he will be a trap and a snare. Many of them will trip. They will fall and be broken. They will be trapped and captured. Tie up and seal this warning that the Lord said to you through me. Preserve among my followers what he taught you through me. I will wait for the Lord. He is turning his face away from Jacob's people. I will put my trust in him. Here I am. Here are the children the Lord has given me. We are signs and reminders to Israel from the Lord, who rules over all. He lives on Mount Zion. So you might be thinking, okay, I'm not sure what that was about. There was Rezin and the son of Remaliah, and not entirely sure what's going on there. Well, if you'll excuse me, we're going to have to go in a little bit of Iron Age politics right here. Fortunately, I have a color diagram for you. But these Iron Age politics, I think, are going to tell us something really interesting about us, the way we see our world. Now, everything centers here on the kingdom of Judah, this little pink thingy down here. Judah is under attack from, or has been under attack from these two countries, Samaria and Aram. They were under pressure from the Assyrian Empire. Now, that's the big player. That's the superpower of the day. And in order to get ready to resist, they wanted to form an alliance. And they wanted Jerusalem, Judah, to be part of that alliance. But King Ahaz of Judah, big player, didn't want to be part of that alliance. So they invaded his country, did Aram and Israel, Samaria. Now, Jerusalem and Judah were very worried, and with good reason. I mean, they could have been starved. They could have been massacred. War will bring plague with it, disease, starvation, and so on. So the king of Judah did something which was apparently quite sensible. He said, well, all right, if I'm going to take heat from Samaria and Aram because I don't want to form an alliance with them against Assyria, I'm just going to call the favor in early, pay off the Assyrians, and get them to attack Aram and Samaria, which the Assyrians duly did, defeating them, destroying this kingdom, taking half of this kingdom, and doing Jerusalem's business for it. But there was a problem with all of this that seemed perfectly sensible. Now, number one is that the prophets had said you don't need to do that. But the other thing is that what this alliance with Syria involved. It wasn't just a military alliance. The Lord said, I'm like the gently flowing stream of Siloam that flows into Jerusalem. He said, but the people of Judah have turned their backs on me. He said, I'm about to bring against the people of Assyria and his whole army. The Assyrians will be like the mighty river Euphrates. That means that the Assyrians are going to turn around and bite you. They're going to get you into bigger trouble than you were in when you started. You see, Ahaz, king of Judah, hadn't just made a military alliance, he'd become the subject of the king of Assyria. And not just the subject, he'd become almost a religious ally. He'd burnt offerings on the altar of the king of Assyria. He'd taken an image of that altar and he'd sent a letter to the priests in Jerusalem saying, make one like this. He tried to make the worship of God himself fit with what the king of Assyria wanted. Now, you still might be saying, well, what's that got to do with me? Well, the answer is I think that we do things like this. I think that we make alliances that in some ways aren't that different. When we're scared, when we're anxious, we start making alliances. For example, in China, that's the one in the middle, you can find the recognized state church has got an agreement with the state. It's protected but there are certain conditions in it. It has to cooperate with the Chinese government intelligence service. You look here in the UK, churches cooperate with the state. Even now, when the church is under pressure from, even say Islam, what do? We turn to the state for protection. We make the West and the civilization of the West and some of the features of the West, its love of human rights and democracy and so on, we say, well, this is our natural home. We want what the West has, its wealth and its human rights and so on and so on. But these things will come back to bite us because we've got our identity wrong. Jesus doesn't offer us rights and he doesn't offer us wealth. He asks us to throw these things aside. It's not about us and our free choices. Our free choices are taken away for us in Christ. So when we choose those things, when we ask for our rights, what will happen when the state turns around to us and says, well, actually what you're doing, your faith, your beliefs are violating someone else's rights. When you pray to be successful, you pray for your kids to be successful and wealthy, what happens if they begin to serve that wealth? Where did you build your identity? And this happened very early on in the church. Even people like Luther, Calvin, Cranmer, they turned to the power of the state 500 years ago in order to make the church do what they wanted. It was just like what the kingdom of Judah did. They bought into the values of the Assyrians in order to get the protection of the Assyrians. They worked with them on a common project. But actually what God was offering them was a child, Immanuel. God with us. And this child, in many ways, he might have seemed irrelevant to the big political questions of the day. He might have seemed irrelevant to people's worries. But that child was the sign that God was with Judah. And that sign, this Immanuel, God is with us, the child, he says that God is with us. He is our salvation. Jesus is our salvation. He's our identity. What he teaches us, what he calls us into as we give up our lives, that's our identity. Nowhere else. In other words, the King Ahaz of Judah had seen his identity and the identity of Judah wrongly. Judah wasn't an ordinary kingdom. It was chosen by God. The problem wasn't a political and economic problem. It was the corruption from within, the corruption of sin that was eating away at the kingdom. You had the wrong identity, the wrong problem, the wrong solution, which was just more of the same. The solution was in the child. The identity of Judah was to be around this child. Now, as they got their identity wrong and they got the problem wrong and they got the solution wrong, they started to be afraid of the wrong thing. Like we're right now in COVID time, which is why I'm making the video. There would be no video without COVID. But people are afraid. They're afraid of getting the disease. They're afraid of dying. They're afraid of running out of food. They're afraid of a bunch of different things. People's behaviors are often driven by fear. It's a very deep-rooted thing. And this fear, though, kind of lies to us. Once we say that our destiny is in these kind of movements of power, of economics, of things that we don't understand, well, we become afraid. And we start seeing conspiracies and manipulations that explain why our lives are out of control. And COVID is throwing up a really juicy crop of conspiracy theories. Conspiracy theories are one of my collectibles. Here's just a few. Dean Koenig seemed to have predicted a Wuhan-based virus in a book. Did he know? Is the coronavirus, is it from God sent to destroy everyone who kind of attacks? So on and so on. Was it invented in a lab? Blah, blah, blah. And you get so many conspiracy theories about coronavirus being some kind of chemical or biological agent, which it isn't. Just wash your hands, people. Do the right thing. Stay home. But these conspiracies are driven by our fear. So we're afraid of the wrong thing. If our identity is in the child, we have no reason to be afraid. We don't even have a reason to be afraid of death. In the, sort of 0.2% chance that it comes to that from coronavirus, we have no reason to be afraid of that. We become afraid of the wrong thing. We begin to see things that aren't there. We see conspiracies. We see treachery. As our identity is bound up in the wrong thing, we become afraid of the wrong things. And then there's the flip side of that, which is you start ignoring the real danger. I was a kid, me and a few mates, we used to have a game where we try and knock each other off our bikes. Now, this is actually very difficult to do if you're experienced in the game. Because if you really want to knock somebody off their bike while you're riding by, they've got to be traveling pretty quick. So if they're looking in the right direction, they're looking at you, you're not really going to be able to knock them off. So we actually got... we started giving points for making someone put their foot down. But if they're looking in the wrong direction, wow, yeah, you can take them out. And that's true here. These guys, as they've got their identity wrong, if they've seen the problem wrong, they've got the wrong solution, they start being afraid of the wrong thing and not afraid of what they really should be afraid of, which is the Lord. You see, because they've built their identity around something that isn't him. And how are they going to live with it? They've tried to push him out of their lives. And he's refusing to be pushed out. That means judgment's coming. So what God becomes, instead of the one who will protect them, which is what he wants, he becomes the opposite. He becomes dangerous. He describes himself a trap and a snare that will trip and be broken. And, you can say, well, look, Immanuel, God saves. But Jesus was a trap to people when they didn't have faith, when they got their identity wrong, when they didn't see him. The God of Israel is not safe. He requires our faith, our repentance, for identity to be built around him, not around something else. That we should be looking for salvation only in him. Not in wealth, not in power, not in certainty, not in medical services, not even in the NHS, not in governments, not in vaccinations. Our safety is in him, in the Holy One. And when we start becoming full of fear and getting our identity wrong, well, actually the Lord himself becomes a trap to us. The Lord saves, and the Lord saves through the child. The child is the Lord's salvation. We belong completely to him. We are his. This is what Ahaz didn't see. This is what Judah and Jerusalem didn't see. They would sell the worship of God in order to get what they want. They didn't understand that they belong completely to him, that their only true identity was in him. And because our identity is in him, the one who gives life and takes it away, we have nothing to fear. Even our lives are safe. No one can take away what God has given us. And so we put our trust in him. We have faith. We will be quiet and trust, because we know that whatever happens, as long as we trust in Jesus, that our identity, our future, and our destiny is with him, and nothing can take that away. Father, I pray that day by day you would teach us to trust completely in you, not to turn aside, not to get our identity wrong, not to clasp on to the things of this world, but to let ourselves go and to trust in you. Amen.